Now, if you're here and you thought like 1 year is a very short period of time, no, you're misadvised. Guess what? 365 days is that long time that you can actually transform and change your life. That's a reality. And I've seen people transforming and changing their lives. Just forget about the 365 days, just 91 days. And guess what they say? With only 91 days, you get yourself a character. And today I'm going to talk about any individual who is out there unfortunate in terms of the finances and the growth. Should I call them poor? That's what the Pew Society calls them. So any individual doing these in a period of only 365 days, guess what happens? They become wealthy, they become rich. But the question is this. Let's first start by defining who is a poor person. A poor person, based on the statistics, an individual who is barely surviving, who is an individual who cannot be able to afford that food. If you cannot be able to afford the three basic needs, that's the food, the shelter, and guess what? The last thing? You're right. That is called the clothing. If you cannot be able to afford this, and if you do, but affording these things actually means you doing what we call overstretching. Therefore, you are classified under the poor individual. And also they say, I don't know, individual who is surviving under $1 or something per day or something or so, whatever it is. The point is this. Now, if you are out there on the down hierarchy, because remember there's something called the hierarchy of what? You see, as we move like this, there's something called, should I call them the hierarchy of priorities again? Should I call it the how you develop yourself? Like when you're dealing with the basic things here under the ground here, at that particular point you're regarded as a poor individual or unfortunate individual. I hate using the term poor because sometimes poverty starts in our head before it goes into our pocket. Actually, having nothing in our pockets is a reflection of what we have in our mind. Now, how exactly do you do this in a period of 1 year and transform and change yourself? There is a video that I made and told you what. Guess what? If you do a financial sacrifice for only 365 days, you're gonna transform your life. Guess what? That video has close to over 500,000 views. You get what I'm saying? That I'm going to borrow information from that video and paste it here for you to understand how you can be able to transform your life in 1 year. And I'm going to draw yourself a very simple graph here. And this is what we call the achievement. And this is what we call the time. All right? Right, then I'm going to draw here, that is month 1. Let's call it in terms of months, okay? Because a year is made up of 12 months. So we're going to say this is, let's say this is 0 here, this is 1, this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let's say that 12th month, that's where it is, all right? Now, this is what happens. See, most of the people you are down here, you're regretting. And this is where a chunk of you are. You know, you're here, you're saying, hey, guess what, Joseph? I cannot be able to make it. I come from a poor background. You see, Joseph, I only make 300 Kenyan shillings in a day. I make 500 Kenyan shillings in a day. Hey, guess what, Joseph? I only make 1,000 bob in a day. I may not be able to save. You always talk about money market fund. You see, you're now playing victim. And guess what? Remember one thing. You don't need to save a huge chunk of money for you to transform yourself and get yourself out of it. And I'm going to use a very simple example. You're down here. Probably you've ever seen me using the example. I'm going ahead and do it a million times and less until we change the society. You're here. So when you have what we call the crowd thinking, at the end of the day, you tend to think like, hey, guess what? It's not only me. Everyone is facing this problem. For example, let's say you're operating a business. You meet somebody who's saying, hey, business is not doing good nowadays. And then you meet another one and another one. Guess what happens? You be like, oh, wow, I thought it's me. Now, that's a very bad character. Now, here you are. What if you decide to make a change? What if you decide to make a change and maybe perhaps, let's say, every day I'll be parting with just 100 bob. See, if you part ways with just 100 bob each and every day, 100 bob is like let's call it $1 if you're watching this from international countries. Let's say you decide to be saving $1 each and every day. At this particular point, if you do so in Kenya, you have yourself 100 Kenyan shillings. By the time you're clocking the month 1, now you're starting becoming different from the rest of the population. Guess what happens now? At the month 1, you have yourself like 3,000. That's it, because the month is made up of 30 days, and then you do so 100 bob, then you're going to have yourself the 3,000. And then you do so the second month. The second month, you have yourself a what? A 6K, all right? And let's say you are smart a little bit enough, but say, let's say the third month, you have yourself the 9,000. Let's say you're a little bit enough. Smart enough, you'd be watching my videos, and instead of saving this money in a bank, guess what happens? You go ahead and do what? Put it in an MMF. A money market fund. Guess what happens in a money market fund? The profit on this money is actually daily, accumulates or credited daily in your account, and then you put it so in a 4th month, you have 4th month, the 6th month, the 12th month. By the time now you're clocking the 12th month, guess what happens? You're gonna be having 3,600, 36,000 rather. You're gonna have yourself 36,000 at the end of the year, and this is exactly how you do it. Now you have yourself that 6,000. That is purely savings, assuming the money market fund is making you profit. And at the end of the month, a money market fund, let's say it adds like 4,000 on top of this. Now you have yourself a clean 40,000. 40,000. Now, let me ask a very simple question. Now, for the first time in your life, you never, despite the 100 Kenyan shillings, you've decided to go ahead and put that amount of money somewhere aside for the purposes of growing yourself. By the time now you're clocking the 12th month at the end of this year, you have yourself the 40,000. People are still complaining, hey, 100 is a less amount of money to save, does not make any sense. If I save 100 today, 200 tomorrow, what does it mean? What does difference does it mean? You get what I'm saying? Now, here you are. We have yourself a 40,000 Kenyan shillings. Now, the point is this. Now, after clocking the 1 year period of time, now, what do you do with that 40,000? And I'm using it a very little amount of money. Some of you who are struggling down there, you're barely eating, you're barely dressing, you're barely paying your rent and something of sort. If today you ask them, like, how much would you need for you to actually be on feet a little bit and set up a small business somewhere and be able to do something? Some of you be like, Joseph, you can get only 10,000. Joseph, you can only get 15,000. You can only get 30,000 or 40,000. Guess what now? You have 40. You don't have 10. You don't have 15. You have 40,000. Guess what happens? You can actually go ahead and, make sort of, establish a makeshift, a sort of, a business somewhere. You can do the fishmongering. You can buy yourself some, oil and whatever. You're doing the fishing things. You can actually sell the fishes. You can establish the grocery store. You can actually put a egg selling business. You can set up a grocery store. You can go ahead and buy a second-hand motorbike, and there you are. Maybe let's say you are a mason somewhere. You have a motorbike. You can do the masonry during the day. At the evening for 2 hours, you can do the boda. You're earning a little bit on top of that. Let's say you have a wife somewhere. You sit her down. You conversate. You talk. And guess what, baby? I have 40,000 with me here. How about we risk the 20? Let's save the 20. The 20 we put a business somewhere. The wife somewhere makes you another 100 bob. Now you're able to save the initial 100 bob, and then on top of that you have another 200 bob. Now you're saving a 200 at the end of the period. Guess what happens now? The next year you're gonna have yourself like 80,000. The third year, the fourth year. That's how you kill poverty. Guess what? But it has to be intentional. All the way from the day one, the time you decide to make a difference, to the time now you get your first 36,000. That needs a lot of sacrifice. It needs a lot of discipline. It needs a lot of consistency. And guess what happens? There is a way of cheating the long process of becoming wealthy. And how exactly do you do that? By the time now you clock you saving 36,000 at the end of the year, in between opportunities can show up. In between you can grab an opportunity. Maybe if, let's say, for example, people are going for something, a holiday or something of so, you can buy something. You have to put your tentacles out there. Remember one thing. You cannot be wealthy if you're not in a business of being a risky-taking individual. You cannot be able to do that. And that is exactly the time of the route that people follow. Because now you're sitting there complaining and saying, hey, guess what? I have to wait until the time I'm making a huge amount of money for me to save. No, if you cannot be able to manage 1,000 bob, you can't manage 100. You can't manage 1,000,000 bob. That's a reality. And guess what happens? If you get a huge chunk of money, for example, you see, there's a difference between growing through and just bumping or just like, busting to a point of where, for example, let's say you've been struggling, maybe the highest amount of money you've ever gotten in your life is like 5,000. Okay? And I want to show you how people squander their lives. Now, let's say that's the highest amount of money I've ever come across. Or let's say maybe 10,000, all right? Let's be a little bit fair, all right? So let's say this is the amount of money that you've ever held, in collection at one particular point. And then all of a sudden, boom, somebody gives you 40,000. Guess what happens? You tend to think that this is a lot of money. It is not. And unless now, you see, your brain functions at a 10,000. So you have to you'll squander this amount of money until you bring it to a level where you actually think. Because there are people, if you give them a certain amount of money, until they bring that money to the level of their thinking, guess what happens? They have to squander that money. But if you grow through with it, you already know what it takes to accumulate 40,000. That's a reality. You already know. And if you have actually done this by yourself, you can redo it. I've ever seen these wealthy people saying, if today all the money taken out of you, what would you do? They say I can actually create it again. Because they know the process. They have gone through, or they have grown through the process. They already know how to do it. Because it is an intentional process. Creating wealth and becoming rich is an intentional process. I think it's like, sort of meeting somebody with muscles and asking them, hey, how did you do it? They tell you, it just happened. I don't know it. No, come on. They did that thing intentionally in a gym to grow all those muscles and all those kind of things. So the same case applies when it comes to creating wealth, becoming rich, and actually getting yourself off hook of what things we call them. Hey, guess what? I don't know, I'm struggling. I can't barely eat and do all those kind of things. And government does nothing about this. It's you to grow yourself about this. So if you're there struggling somewhere, if you do exactly what I've said this, in a period of 1 year, you're going to be off the hook of people complaining, hey, guess what? The economy is doing bad and all those kind of things. And I always wonder, People complain that economies are doing bad, and we usually have a traffic in Nairobi each and every time. Even if they build those expressways and highways and whatever, we still have traffic because people are buying cars each and every time. And every storm benefits somebody. So if you were to dedicate the next 365 days, and again, when I say 1 year, don't have to wait until you hit 2025. That's the time now at the January, that's when you're embarking on this challenge. No, do this immediately after watching my video. If you're watching this video, whatever the day or time or month or whatever it is, if you go ahead and pick that and give yourself the next 365 days from when you make a decision to the next time you hit the next 1 year, you're going to have this accumulation, you're going to have this target, you're going to have these winnings. And that is exactly how you grow yourself. If you remain at the down there complaining, you ain't going to do nothing. All right? Now, that is one way of doing that specific thing. The other way is actually you defining what it's actually reached to you. What do you aim? All right, you may know, or rather, let's say maybe at the back of your head, you actually love to get a million bob somewhere. Maybe perhaps to you, being wealthy is making your first a million, 2 or 3 or 10 or 20 something. All right, so to you, what you define as wealthy, work towards that. What you do is to compartmentalize that big dream. Let's say your target is to get like a 2 million or 3 or 10 or whatever the amount of money it is. See, attacking that thing, the way big it is, you might not feel like you're doing anything. But if you were to compartmentalize, let's say your target is a million bob. I've ever given you this formula before. Let's say your target is to make a million bob, all right? To make a million bob. So if your target is to make a million bob, compartmentalize this a million bob. You can divide it into 10. If you divide it into 10, you have a compartment of 100,000, right? 100,000. Or you divide it into 100. If you divide it into 100, you're going to have a compartment of 10,000. Guess what happens now? You're going to have 100 compartments of 10,000. So you have the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, until the 100th compartments. Now, this is the first 10,000, all right? This is the first 10,000. The moment you hit the first 10,000, guess what? You tick a box there and say, guess what? I'm done with the one. Now I'm remaining with 99. You do the second one. You do the third one. By the time now you're clocking that, you have that motivation. You're seeing something happening. But if you just save against a million bob and you're saving, let's say 3,000 at the end of the month, you ain't going to feel nothing. You're going to feel like as if you're doing anything. And that is the time now you feel like, guess what? I think I should give up and wait until that particular time when I'm making a huge amount of money. But when you do this, because now 10,000 is a bit, it's a language that you can resonate with. It's a money that you can actually get. It's a money that if you were to save, maybe let's say in 10 days, because some of you are making 1,000 bob in a day. If you save that amount of money in 10 days, you have actually achieved the target number one. And when you do exactly that, that's when you bring it down to a point whereby every coin counts. So when you have in a basis, for example, if someone you're about to squander 400, you are like, yeah, damn. This 400, if I can only add 600, I have the 1,000 bob. And I'm 9 days shy doing what? Achieving the second target. No, I'm not going to use that amount of money. But if you're like, okay, fine, I'm about to use 400 and my savings is a million bob. Come on, even if I was to put 400 against the million bob, what am I doing? That's the time now you don't resonate with the language. All right, and this is not applicable for people who are earning less. But if you can apply, let's say maybe your target is to earn 100 million, you do the same. You compartmentalize. Bring it to a language that you can resonate with, to a point whereby the money, to a point whereby that specific amount of money, you feel pain when you can squander or when you're squandering that amount of money. That is exactly how you grow through the process. And if you do exactly that thing, you can be able to redo it again and again and again. And you scale this down. That's how you create a lot of wealth. And by the way, you'll be like, okay, Joseph, do you use these formulas that you share with us? Absolutely, I was. And remember one thing, if you would like to know who is me, go watch my older videos, like years and years of videos, like let's say 2.5 years or 3 years back then when I started YouTube or something of sort. Go check it out. All right, I started somewhere. You see, after graduating, I was so frustrated. There were no jobs or something of sort. I was into painting, I was into all those kind of things, and I met a lot of people who were discouraged about life, my fellow graduates. And if I did listen to some of them, they are still struggling here and there, and if I did listen to them that there are no job, there are no nothing, and I have that victim mentality, I will still be here. But I decided, guess what? I have a dream of making content and all those kind of things, because I know those can actually pay my bills and also progress in life. So I decided, I know, hey, the phone that I want to buy will cost me 15,000, and I'm earning, let's say, 1,000 bob per day. And let's say after deducting all my daily expenses, I'm remaining with like 500. Then I knew I have to set a certain period of time and be able to acquire that phone. And then exactly that's how you do it. You get the phone, you start making video. And when you start making videos, they do not pay you. Probably nobody's watching and that kind of thing. Another sort of what do we call it? Another sort of a thing that is, almost to make you give up. And then you keep on pushing until to a point where by now you start becoming to the limelight, and where now you can be able to sustain your life and be able to progress to the next level. We still push, we still aim. Well, we do have these human beings, we do have that aim of achieving the greatest thing in life. Only God knows where we're going to reach. For now, it's a goodbye, but never forget, let's move on this journey together. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel, and if you're in a position to, you can become a member of the channel by supporting the great Joseph. And again, make sure that you put a comment down below there, and let's be great to each other. Let's grow each other. This information was never shared with us when we were growing up. We were just told, hey, guess what? You just work and just work. Yeah, just work and save and you'll become rich. That's not the case. We know the things have changed now. For now, it's a goodbye and see you in the next one.